Are you saying not to go on Zillow and look at the $1 million houses around you?
You can look, you can look, but man, like even in this market, if you can get approved for a $500,000 house, like you need to be looking in that 4 to 450 range because you're gonna have to go over to that $500,000 range. Don't start in that because that's where you're gonna get into the situation where you're losing houses left and right.
Hey there, Lincoln here with FORREacademy.org. Today we have Cassidee Curran of the FORRE Group of Compass, and she is a phenomenal real estate agent, if I'm getting that right, or realtor.
Yeah.
Who helps anyone in Delaware County, Philadelphia area find the right home and lock it down and get it bought or even sold. So we're going to speak to her today about the entire home buying process from start to finish and get some tips on how to maximize both your return if you're a seller or minimize your cost as a buyer. And of course, get to closing in as fast as possible, because sometimes if you're not doing it right, it can take a lot of time. I have experience with that. It's not fun, and that's why you have to have the right team. And Cassidee and her team have the record of doing it right consistently and getting great reviews from their clients. And I'm excited to have her here today, Cassidee the Realtor. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Lincoln, for having me. My name's Cassidee. I'm a small team leader, and I've been in real estate for about 6 years now. I just turned 27, so it's kind of the first thing that I did out of college. And I love real estate because I full-heartedly believe in investing in your future and getting properties to build wealth for the future and getting people into their first home, minimizing their costs, getting sellers the most they can for their house, and maximizing their investment, because a lot of times people only have, maybe their one house or investment property as their retirement, and they really bank on that money. And so maximizing their investment is huge for me, and just making sure that everyone has the best representation and understands the process. So hopefully I can give you some tips and help you with that today.
Definitely. And of course, you have a Instagram and Facebook pages that you share tips on all the time. So how do we find you on those channels?
Yep. So it's easy at Cass the Realtor. And then we also have the FORRE Group. So FORRE. It's actually for real estate. So you can find Instagram there. Yep. Drop tips, working on the real game. That's a constant. Oh man, we're getting better at that. So
yeah. So just quickly, before we get into the home buying process, I'm curious how you got into real estate. Why did you get into that?
Yeah, so I got into real estate. Well, Lincoln and I actually grew up. We went to, elementary school, middle school, high school together. So when my mom was selling our family home in Wallingford, I was still living at home. I stayed at home. I went to community college and wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do when I graduated there, where I wanted to transfer. So we were selling our family home in Wallingford, and my mom had one realtor. And it's kind of that same situation that I teed up earlier. Like, she has this house, a lot of, her money is tied up in this house. She's a single mom. And so she was selling this house. We had it up on the market for 6 months with one realtor, and she didn't get the job done. Like, the house was just sitting there. So, when a house is vacant and no one's living in there, people are paying every month. So she's paying every month. It's stressing her out. And then after the 6 months, she calls in this other realtor, and the other realtor steps in. And she told my mom probably like about 10 items. She was a pain in the ass, and she got the job done. She sold the house for more money in 2 weeks that the other realtor couldn't do in 6 months. And I was like, whoa, how does she do this? And just by getting the house sold, you could see how much of a difference that made in my mom's life. Getting that extra $10,000, $20,000 was huge for my mom's life. And I was like, I can do this. Like, let me figure out how to do this for people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my mission with every house that I step into. Sometimes I'm a little bullheaded about it, and I'm just like, come on, like, do these items, because like by investing, let's say $1,000 to $5,000, a lot of times it can make you $15,000, $20,000, and that can change someone's life. So that's how I got into it, and ever since I've just embarked on the journey.
That's awesome. So you're telling me this lady, first, of course, somebody else just couldn't get it sold for her, your mom who is an amazing lady. Miss her. Tell her I said hi. And then she found another real estate agent who helped her sell it and get more money.
More money in 2 weeks. Yep. So we
Wow.
have like that first situation where you have a passive agent in the driver's seat. And then the second situation where you have a realtor that comes in and takes control, has a strategy, has a plan, is proactive instead of reactive. And it changes the game. I mean, that difference, and consumers don't know what agent you're going to get. Like sometimes people do and you know what you're looking for, but when you don't know what you're looking for and you don't really understand the process, how would you know what to look for in a
Yeah.
realtor? And yep, so it's pretty crazy thing,
Yeah. Well, that's why people have you now. So,
right?
and you say you've been doing it for 6 years,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I heard a stat recently, or even last year when I was doing my research on Open Door, that most realtor or real estate agents don't. I keep saying realtor, but apparently that's a trademark, and not sure how that's applied. Are you a realtor?
Yeah, I'm a realtor. So realtors, just quickly, like have another level of a code of conduct that they have to follow, and you have to join like an additional association to be a realtor.
Got it.
Versus a real estate agent, it's like the Wild West a little more.
Got it. So you're tenured and you have all the experience and you got the badge of honor, right?
Right.
So 6 years in, but the
Yeah.
stat that I heard was that most real estate agents, 80% fall out of the business in the first year of joining. Why is that?
People here, and like you'll just talk to anyone on the street, like you'll be checking out at the counter and my dad will be like, oh, she's a realtor like at the Sam's Club or whatever in our local area. And people are like, wow, like, you must make a lot of money. Like people have these like almost inflated beliefs towards realtors and like what they make and how their job is easy and how you have this flexible lifestyle. And like that word realtor comes with all of these different beliefs behind it about your lifestyle. And when you get into the business and realize that you're an independent contractor, each brokerage, and maybe we'll get into that later, maybe it's another talk, but each brokerage is set up differently with how you get paid. But the majority of realtors that you meet are independent contractors. So we're paying fees and we don't make any money until you get to the closing table. And then you get through the closing table. And we don't get business a lot of times just like given to us. I mean, you're going out and you're hunting or you're going for the business. Like you have to talk to people, you have to network, you have to put yourself out there. So people really think it's like, I don't want to say that they think it's going to be easy, but they don't realize how much you have to put into it and give to it to get back. And that's where people are just like, yeah, maybe it's like not what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the old saying, people try to want to leave their 9 to 5 to start their own thing, and then they realize they're working 24/7, right?
Exactly. Like you are a business owner. Like you
Yeah,
gotta hustle until you get going. And then if you want to level up, you have to hustle again. And you just have to hustle when people want you to hustle as well. It's not really on your own time frame.
exactly. And you mentioned about the brokerages, which we definitely should get into later. I do want to hear your thoughts on this Compass and Open Door and Zillow and all the rest and how that fits in with what you do as a real estate agent, realtor, and yeah, how each of those influence the home buying process, which we should get into now.
Sure.
So
Yeah, let's do it.
tell me, I'm getting on the market. I'm looking for a house. I want to leave my apartment, stop paying all my money to a mortgage that I don't own, and start making my own or building my own equity in the house. So how do I even start? What do I do first?
What I would say to do first is find a local realtor. And I know that sounds like I'm plugging myself, but I would definitely find a realtor because they're going to explain the process, especially first time home buyers, or even if you're upsizing or you're downsizing. There are so many moving parts, and you want to make sure that you're working with someone that can see the full picture, help you talk through the process to understand every step and how to maximize each step so that it flows and that you can plan better. And that planning process and that understanding process brings so much to your life. So I would definitely say talk to a realtor first, and then what they're going to do is connect you with a local lender. Getting connected with a local lender is super important, and I think you experienced that in your process of buying a house. And when you're not with the right lender, especially in this market, there's unexpected costs, there are unexpected hurdles, there are unexpected timelines getting pushed out. And there are so many moving parts throughout the buying process. Like people think, oh, the buying, like I'm just going to buy a house. Like for you to get to that process and get to the end and be like, oh, I just bought a house, for it to be seamless, like you need a good team. And to be as stress-free as possible, you need a great team. So that's where like starting with a great realtor that's local to your area, and then them getting connected with a great local lender is so important, because it does make the process, it helps all of those unexpected things almost go away, all of those question marks go away. And like it's stressful enough buying a house, so like you want to remove all of that stress if possible. And like always things will come up, but yeah, as many stressful things as you can remove, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so now I'm on Zillow.com or whatever. I'm looking up on Google, and I found this beautiful house. It cost $1 million. I make $50,000 a year. There's other houses that I want to get to, and some of them cost more within my price range, right? Within near my salary. So how do I go about focusing on the ones that I can afford? Like, is there a thing that I should do first?
Definitely. So let's say you're 6 months out from buying a house and you're like, I don't want to talk to a lender because I don't want them to pull my credit. That's okay. You can talk to a local lender and have a discovery phone call and just be like, look, I'm not quite ready yet. I just want to get an idea of where I'm pre-approved for. And they're going to help you with that. They'll ask you questions. They'll give you a range of what they think you'll be approved for. And then let's say you're 3 months out and you're like, okay, I want to move this summer. Then you will go through that pre-approval process. You'll have them pull your credit. And during that time as well, I would say speak to a couple other local lenders, and your realtor can get you in contact with them. And you have a 14-day window to get your credit pulled from different places where it won't ding your credit multiple times, because they know that you're shopping around for a mortgage. So get a couple of different pre-approvals. And then a little later in the process, we'll talk about comparing rates. So you wouldn't really do that right up front, but get a pre-approval from a couple of different places, because they're going to ask you all for the same paperwork. So you can just send it off to all three, and then you'll be prepared for when you do get under contract and you want to compare rates to get the best loan package.
Cool. So now I have the pre-approval, and I'm looking for houses in my area, in multiple areas, right? Because I want to make sure I find the right place. Are there any things that I should look out for when trying to find a house? Say I am just starting out my career and I want to find a house that I can afford, but also might be a good investment.
Definitely. So everyone's different, and I'll preface it with that. So it really comes down to what your goals are. If you want a house that you can add value to and it's your first house, I would say maybe start with smaller projects. Like maybe get something that needs new carpet and needs paint, and look past the little things, because in this market right now, houses that are completely redone go right away. They go well over asking price. Like I just bought this house for myself and it needs a little bit of work. Like it doesn't need a full new kitchen, but like the cabinets needed to be painted and the bathroom needs a new vanity, but like the shower is done and the floors are fine. The back patio area needs like paint. The front needed paint. So like little things like that, look for those as your first one, because that's like a good way to add value without having to go through the whole process of like doing everything. Because then you, like a lot of people that I have this experience with, get very deterred when you have too big of a project. You don't have time for that. Like you want to live in there. So yeah, maybe start with something that needs, some things, but not everything. And then also like if you plan to maybe get another house in the future and keep this one, what I look at is what can I rent this for? So like if you can rent, like I just bought this place and my payments are like $14.90 a month. So I know that once I make some improvements and like decorate it well and make it cool looking, that I can get someone in here for like $1,750 to $1,800. And for me, that's enough. Like I'm like newer into the investing game myself. So just making, a couple $100 a month, like that works for me as my equity is getting paid down as well. So it just depends on what your goals are. And that's something too that a realtor can help you with. And even the mortgage lender is just prompting you and asking you good questions to think through, like, okay, what your end goal is. Because then once you're clear on what your goal is, then you see the house and you're like, okay, great. Like that makes sense for me.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to make a decision.
Now I know what kind of house I want to buy, but I don't know how I'm going to afford it, right? How I'm going to actually go ahead and buy it. So I want to know what kind of loans I have for my options, right? And especially if I need to do work, what kind of loans might be most ideal for me to go after?
Again, it is down to what your goal is. So if you want to renovate the house, you have this loan option called a 203K loan, which it's an FHA 203K loan. So you'll hear the term FHA, conventional, and VA. Those are the three most common loan packages that you'll have available to you as a buyer. So a VA loan, that is if you're in the military service or you were. A conventional loan tends to be for people that have more established credit and longer credit history. So that's why a lot of first-time home buyers end up in the FHA realm, because FHA is backed by the Federal Housing Authority. So that's a FHA loan, and it requires a 3.5% down payment. Some conventional loan packages you can get in with 3 or 5% as well, and then up to 20% or however much you want to put down. But a lot of first-time home buyers end up in the FHA realm because as a first-time home buyer, you have, like, even if you don't have bad credit and you have good credit and you pay everything on time, in our 20s, in our mid to later 20s or early 20s, like you don't have a deep credit history. Like it's pretty shallow. So your credit's not going to be probably where it could be to make sense to be in a conventional loan package. So being in that FHA program gives you a lower interest rate. It gives you better terms and better options. And that's why it is really important to talk to a local lender that knows what's up, because a lot of other lenders will just like get you in a package, like you'll fill out a form online and you're like, oh, this looks great. But then you show up to the closing table and they're like, you have all these additional fees and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wait, hold on. Like I thought my rate was this, and you have no recourse. You're stuck. You have to do it. You really have no choice. And that's where, like, if one of my lenders did that to one of my clients, I'd like not give them business anymore. Like, you got to take care of my people.
Yep.
Like having someone that you can really talk through that's looking out for your best interests. Like there's no clear cut answer. And that's why working with the right mortgage lender saves you so much money, because they look at your whole financial picture and they're going to tell you what program is best for you, or they're going to give you options. Like when I just bought, they were like, okay, you have these 3 options. And I was like, okay, well, I'll pay this down payment. And like, I like this monthly payment, or like I can pay a little less, but like, I don't really want that monthly payment. So just depends what you're looking for. And that's why, the lender is going to tell you what's up.
Definitely. And you touched on something at the end there with the closing table and there being issues, right? So one thing I discovered is that sometimes you don't have the option to use one of those loans. You don't, for one, the VA, you can't do it if you're not a veteran, but for the FHA, sometimes the home buyer doesn't want you to use that. And so they will reject you if you try to go over FHA, because there might be some conditions of the house that wouldn't pass the FHA's requirements. And so they want you to use the conventional. And if you don't, then you might not even get your Earnest money back, which we'll get into later. So can you speak to that, why there might be issues with the FHA and what the disadvantages are with that loan?
Yeah, definitely. So FHA is backed by the Federal Housing Authority, and they're backing your loan. So if you default, like they're on the line for that. So because of that, they have additional requirements throughout the process. So like what happens when you put in an offer as well, you're going to put in the offer as a contingency, which is a way for you to like get in or out of the contract and stay in the contract. So you have to put it in there what type of loan you're getting. So that's where you just mentioned that, one, you may not even get your FHA offer accepted, and I'll tell you why. And then 2, they may want you to go conventional, or like 3, once you get in the contract and you wrote that you're going conventional and then you find out that a FHA makes more sense, you're not going to be able to switch to that unless the seller agrees, because 1, you are locked into the contract for those terms. And the reason that the seller may want to go for a conventional offer versus an FHA offer is because the biggest thing is once you get your offer accepted, you put in a loan application with the mortgage lender, and then it triggers what's called an appraisal. So that's where the bank sends out a third party to give an evaluation on the property to let the bank know, like, look, you're paying a good price for this house. Like, you're not overpaying for this house. And when you're going conventional, the appraisal mainly is just about what the value of the house is. When it's FHA, what happens is the bank will come out and like, I just went FHA with my house and like, I kind of blanked because it was my own house. So like, I didn't even think about it. And they came back and they were like, we need the chipping paint on the front of the house fixed. And like, I planned to paint the house when I moved in anyway, but you know, it was my own house. I'm not really paying attention. And I'm just like, oh gosh, like, yeah, of course. So FHA will call things like, okay, if your heater's really old, like they may want a heater cert. If your roof's really old, they may want a roof cert. If you have chipping paint, like that's what they worry about, and they want that fixed because then it can cause more damage to the house. So they're trying to look at, so it's good for first-time buyers because there's an additional step to make sure that your house is in good shape and that you're protected. But from the seller's perspective, if the seller accepts an FHA offer, they're technically, per the contract, required to make those improvements to the house prior to closing. So what my buyers that, you know, are going FHA and we're in a competitive situation, you can do is say, look, like we know that, you know, it's not as preferable to take an FHA offer versus a conventional offer, but we'll write in the contract and you do a separate addendum that will take care of any repairs that do get required for the appraisal. And you may say like, oh, well, it's the seller's responsibility. Like, it doesn't matter in this market. Like, you have to do what you have to do to get it accepted. So like with my house, I was just like, great. Like, yeah, I'll get my contractor out here and I'll get the house painted. And that's why working with a good realtor that knows people in the business, like can help you because they can help line that work up for you to get it done. So that's why the seller almost prefers a conventional offer versus FHA in this market.
Yeah.
Market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've actually, this is a very real thing for myself because I had the issue where I had a conventional and then my lender, who was more as a national bank, who will remain unnamed, told me I could go to switch to a FHA. And then at the last minute, it turned out I couldn't. And so waste all that time. And then they try to give me a higher interest rate because I couldn't lock it in at the time because we were switching. And so I had to go through all that and fight with them and tell them, hey, you told me I could do this. So now you got to honor your previous interest rate. So yeah, a lot of things can go wrong if you don't understand how these loans are set up and why the contract says, hey, we only accept the conventional. So now that we covered FHA versus conventional, can we speak to the renovation loans, the 203K and the Homestyle that you mentioned earlier? Can you walk me through why I might want to use those? And
Yeah.
of course, the cost of those loans?
Yeah, so you definitely can do those. So if you go to a house that, let's say you want to make improvements, you're up for the project and you want to add value and build equity into the house right away, you go for a 203K loan. And the good thing about that is, and the way it works is, it's an FHA loan product, so you can get in for 3.5% down. And then the way it works is you build in a renovation budget into your mortgage costs. So
I'm Lincoln, and you are watching bullacademy.org. If you enjoyed this video, please do remember to like it below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts below. All of your engagement means a lot to the channel and helps us grow because YouTube's algorithm won't recommend our videos unless you engage with it. Thank you, and now let's hop in.
Let's say the house is for $200,000. It needs $30,000 worth of work. You're going to get a loan for $230,000. And then there's a draw schedule after closing that the contractor works with the mortgage company to get those funds on a timely schedule to get your project completed, and then you pay your mortgage payment. Your mortgage payments are based on the total loan value, so $230,000. So yeah, it's definitely a great option for people that want to make improvements to the property and you want to get in for a reasonable amount of money. And you don't have, let's say, or you don't want to spend all your money to make those improvements yourself. Like you want to finance it, and rates are going up, but like even 5% is still such a great interest rate. Like, okay, it's not as great as like 2.5%, but like 5% is still great to finance money to make improvements into a property, like all day, every day. Even like 6% or 7%. I'm not sure where they're going to go or how high they're going to go, but it's still reasonable to force equity into a property. So it's definitely why you would go to a 3K. And you just need the right contractor as well. So
Right, because the government enforces which contractors you can use, right?
exactly. So they do need to be licensed and insured. And like prior to you getting the loan, the contractor does have to do some paperwork, and they have to be willing to take those couple of extra steps to help you through the process.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, why might I want to force equity into the property?
You would, because let's say you're buying a house for $200,000, you're putting $30,000 into it, so you're getting a loan for $230,000. By you making $30,000 worth of improvements, the house is probably going to be worth, let's say, conservatively 265, like 270 at the end of the day. So right there, even if you want to resell it within the next year, which I think for that product you do have to wait a year, like you could cash out another, let's say, $30,000 after fees, which is great. Like you built that equity into the property. If you're ever in a weird situation with money, you can always sell the property and you have money in there. So it's a really cool thing to have equity built into real estate. And then look, if you plan to hold it and then you buy another property in a year or two, and then you pay it down for another 5-10 years, you have much more equity in there. You can always cash out, refinance. So then you have 20% in the house, and then you take the remainder to put into another property, put into another investment, another project. So forcing equity, if you're willing to do the work, is a great way to do it. You just have to be willing to take on the project.
Yeah. And this is what you're speaking to, is the BRRRR strategy, right? Where you're buying. You can speak to that.
Yeah, the BRRRR strategy is awesome. I'm not quite there yet with my investing practices, but I do love it. I mean, you are just forcing equity into property, pulling it out, and then reinvesting it into another property.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're squeezing out like a couple hundred, I know people, especially some first-time buyers that listen to so many videos and things like that of experienced investors who are like, I'm making 600 a door, I'm making 700, 800, like blah, blah, blah. I only buy something if I can make this much and this and that. Like, okay, I get it. It's great. You got to start somewhere. And if you're looking for those big numbers and that big spread, you're going to be waiting. Like I have this one first time buyer now, and he's super cool, and he's watched so many videos, and he's so intelligent as far as it goes and understands the numbers so well, where me on the other hand, I'm more of like let's do it. Like the numbers make like enough sense that like I'll just go for it. And I started with him over a year ago, and it's his first property. He wants a duplex, and then he just kind of like kept pushing it off because we weren't finding the spread, like enough of a spread that he wanted. And now interest rates are 2% higher.
It's very unfortunate.
It's like, come on, dude. Prices are up. I mean, prices are up 30, 40,000 since he first started. His income's higher, but it's like, it's so relative. Like, okay, your income's higher, but now the prices are higher, and now the interest rates are higher, and now your spread is. So it's just like, if you find, like for me, I'm like, look, if I can get, like I have a condo in Swarthmore where we grew up, and for me, the investment makes sense because they're building up Swarthmore. It's a steady investment. The taxes are still higher. Like I know that I could make, say, like 500 or 600 maybe a month, like somewhere else. But here I'm making, I don't know, maybe 300 a month. And then like on top of what my mortgage and HOA fee, my condo fees are really high. So we won't get into that. But I'm only making maybe like $250, $300 a month. But also my mortgage is getting paid down. So like another $150, $200 a month. So like that's $500 right there. And like it's still great. It's still great. And then you can get more money per month. Your mortgage is lower if you force equity into the property as well. So yeah, jump in.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate what happened with that client of yours, because people watch, and I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of this, where we want to learn something new, and we start watching videos and reading books and getting all the studies, right, going academic, but we don't take action, right? And then the best time to buy is when the interest rates are low. And unfortunately, because he was analyzing so much and was trying to perfect this method, which people who have been in the game forever are now talking about how they're doing it, but they started somewhere too, and they don't speak to that. And so now he sees where they're at now. He's trying to do what they're doing, but he's not even at that stage. You just stay at your own level, right? So
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with a lot of these videos, I almost had to stop watching them myself, because like I'm in real estate and I'm just like, yeah, but like how did you get from here to here? Like I'm here. Then it makes you want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, it's great to surround yourself with people that are there, but also you need to surround yourself with people that are here, that are like figuring it out, that are like trying to piece together deals that are not so expensive, or like you're piecing together one deal and not 5 deals and not a package. Like you have to start somewhere. And that's why it's cool that you're doing this, because it's like, okay, yeah, you're showing how you're building up from here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. And that's something that's missed a lot right now.
Yeah. Talk to me about interest rates versus cost. Which one's more important when it comes to buying a house? I don't know, I have my own opinions, but I'd love to hear yours.
Definitely. I am not a great numbers person, like in general. So when, if we're talking on such like a technical, detailed level of like, okay, over the course of 30 years, like I just don't really think that way. And like, okay, well, if you pay, a higher interest rate now, but the price is lower over 30 years, it's going to be like this amount of money. Like, I don't think that way. Like the way I think really is, okay, today, and this is all about like me needing to take action, and my business thrives on people taking action, and like my life thrives on like taking action. So the way I think about interest rates and price, it's like, do the numbers make sense for you right now in this moment? Are they going to make sense for you in a month from now, in a year from now? Are you happy with making this payment? Are you okay with putting this amount of money down? And that's how I look at it. So with interest rates being low right now, and they're still low, and when they were in the 3s and like people felt like they were really overpaying for houses, I'm like, okay, how much are you putting down? And how much do you want a house for one? Because like, if you want a house, like figure out a way. So like, okay, you want a house, great. How much are you cool with putting down? So we established that. And putting down means your down payment and closing costs. So there are 2 parts.
Right. Yeah. People don't think about that. When I went to buy my house, I just thought about the down payment, and then like 6% closing cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So figure out how much you're cool with putting down, and then your monthly payment. So if we can find, and that's how you back into your price. So to me, almost interest rates, I'm not going to say they're irrelevant, because we're seeing buyers getting priced out of houses that they were previously approved for, because interest rates have gone up, and now their monthly payments are hundreds of dollars higher than they were, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. So I'm not going to say they're irrelevant. It's just knowing how much you're comfortable spending. And, I don't want to say comfortable, because dropping any sort of money like that, a big chunk of money, like it's uncomfortable. Like, I know that this is a good investment for me, but I'm still like, whew, like, yeah, you don't get super comfortable dropping all this money, but stay within your budget and know what your numbers are personally. And then don't worry about like the little things. And we can talk about like getting the interest rate down and things like that and loan packages. But yeah, know what's good for you today in this time. Can you make the payments? Great. Buy the house.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is, it's not that you don't care about the numbers, it's that you are more inclined to take action, right? Because if you don't take action, you're going to be waiting for, you're trying to time the market. You're trying to figure out when's the interest is going to go down, when's the price is going to go down, when's it's going to go up. And you might not ever have the right conditions. And so you'll never buy.
Right. I mean, if we're waiting for like the perfect conditions, man, I don't know. I don't know when they're going to happen. You want to buy a house or you don't want to buy a house? Do these numbers work for you or do they not work for you?
Exactly.
That's what you have to look at. And when you're thinking about, okay, how much am I willing to pay for this house? That's where it comes back into what's your budget? Like, okay, find out what that max point is within that budget and say like, okay, well, if I go $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over asking, am I still within that range? And is this house worth that range? Or could I buy this other house that I like more within this range? So that's where I really stay within the numbers today. Do they work for you? Great.
So are you saying not to go on Zillow and look at the $1 million houses around you?
You can look, but man, like even in this market, like if you can get approved for a $500,000 house, like you need to be looking in that like $4 to $450 range, because you're gonna have to go over to that $500,000 range. Don't start in that like, oh, I'm approved up to 500. Do not start in that 475 to 500 range, because that's where you're gonna get into the situation where you're losing houses left and right. You can't afford it, blah, 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 blah. You're going to fall in love with houses that, are in that range, because it's natural to want more than, or like push your boundaries. You're just not going to be able to get a house in this market unless it's been up on the market for a little bit of time.
Yeah. And now we're at the point where I found the perfect house. I have my agent. She's telling me, let's make an offer, and walking through that process, how to make an offer and what comes next.
Definitely. All right. So each area is going to be different. Each state is different. Friends with realtors in different states. So everyone's process is different. I'm in Philly and Delaware County, and then you go over the bridge 15 minutes in New Jersey, and it's a totally different ball game. But generally, the way the process works is you're going to put in an offer, and in Pennsylvania, the offer is really detailed. Like we have a 14-page agreement, where in New Jersey, you have a 2-page document that's more of like an offer proposal summarizing the terms. But generally, you're going to have to think through the whole process. And that's why it's important to have the discovery call and understand all the terms with, someone in your local market ahead of time, because you want to know what all goes into the offer and be prepared and already be thinking that way. So in PA, for example, like we're going to talk about when we're putting in an offer, that 14-page agreement includes how much your deposit is, how much the purchase price is, when your settlement date is, what your mortgage terms are. I may have mentioned inspections, but inspections are a huge one. The appraisal. So all of that is going to be addressed in this 14-page document. And you send that over. So you're going to send whatever type of offer sheet it is. So if it's the 2-page one or if it's the 14-page one in PA, like that gets sent over. Your realtor will pull that together. You're going to sign off. You're going to have the pre-approval from the lender. So what the pre-approval is, it's like having a bank statement for cash. It's a little different because there's more terms to get a mortgage, but that's the idea. It's like the banks promise that they did the homework on you and that they're agreeing to lend you this money for this amount. So the pre-approval letter, number 2. Sometimes in PA, you have to do a buyer's financial, which is a 2-page document, and that explains like what liabilities you have in your life, like how much cash do you have that you're working with, what's your income, because that helps the other agent and the seller, look at you as a buyer and talk to the lender and ask them the right questions to make sure that you're actually qualified to get to the closing table. And then in PA, and I'm not sure if you had this in New York, but you have a seller's disclosure. So in PA, the seller has to fill out an 11-page document that lists like, okay, how old's the heater? How old's the roof? Do you know of any water in the basement? That's something that you read and you sign off on. So those 4 items are what goes into putting in an offer in PA. Again, every state's different. But by doing that, it gives you a full picture of the process and lays it out.
And now the offer is sent. What should I expect next?
Yeah, so what to expect next is you kind of have to wait. I have to wait a little bit.
How long?
So it depends. In this market, it's just so different with everyone. It depends how old the seller is, how quick the seller is. It's all somewhat dependent on the seller and the seller's agent. So sometimes the agent will say, okay, we have an offer deadline of Tuesday. So you have the whole weekend and you put in the offer on Friday and you're twiddling your thumbs for 5 days. Sometimes if the offer is good enough and you're really aggressive right off the front, the listing agent will present your offer and you can get that offer accepted prior to Tuesday. It doesn't always happen though. If the house has been up for a little bit, sometimes, the seller is slow getting back, or the seller is really quick and they're eager to sign off. So like when I bought my house, I put the offer in and like I was signed off on by that night. And it just is so dependent on every party that's involved, because there's usually going to be 4 parties involved: buyer, sellers, and 2 agents. So if the agent is away on vacation.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Vacation?
What was that?
Vacation?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Vacation?
It doesn't happen a lot for realtors to get on vacation or not answer their phone. So I mean, just not everyone's created equally or responds in the right amount of time or when you want them to. So
That's
it depends. Yeah.
If my agent didn't respond to me, I would not be happy.
Right? Definitely. You're like, come on, what's going on? Even when I was doing it, I was like, what's up? Like, come on. And then you get it. You're like, oh, yep.
So my offer is accepted. And for whatever reason, they're happy with what I put down, and I beat everyone else, even the cash offers for some reason.
Nice.
And, yeah, so we're good to go. They say let's buy. What do I do next, man?
Yeah, so when they say you're good to go, again, every state's different. The way it happens in PA is, and I like to give my buyers a timeline because there are so many moving parts between when the offer is accepted, which means buyer and seller both sign off on the terms and agree to everything. And it is normal, let me just say, for the seller to come back and be like, okay, can we switch like a couple of terms? So just expect that. But once everyone signs off, what happens is that starts a timetable. So in the contract, you're going to be like, okay, in PA, the deposits are like, let's say within 2 days.
What deposit?
So you have, depends. The way we structure it a lot of times is you have a first and second deposit. So the first deposit is going to be given as a sign of good faith to the seller right after the contract's being signed, either within 2 or 5 days of when that contract signed off. And then we have the second deposit that's due after you get through inspections. And we can talk more about inspections if you want, but once you get,
do I get that money back?
So yes and no. According to the contract in PA, let's say, technically you should get the money back if you pull out for inspections. And the reason I say it that way is because it's not a guarantee. In order for the deposit money to get released once it's given in, the seller does need to sign off and allow you to do that. So if you have a really tough seller, your money can be tied up for, let's say, 30, 60, 90 days. And we have this clause written in the agreement. So that's important to put the right days in that contract and go through mediation. So I've never had that issue where we've had to go through that. But that's where you come into it and you try and know that if you're giving the deposit, like you want to buy the house and that you want to try and work through inspections, and that only if like something drastic happens or it really doesn't make sense for you to move forward anymore, then you pull out of the contract.
Before you continue, this is called the earnest money as well, right?
Yep, it's called the earnest money. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So that's what your earnest money is. I guess you're being earnest, like a sign of good faith, giving that deposit. So yeah, first and second deposit. So that's like if anything crazy does come up during the inspections and you can't move forward, you can terminate the contract as the buyer and get your earnest money back. And you can get your earnest money back.
Or you can ask the seller to handle it, right?
Yep, exactly. And you'll terminate the contract, you get the release of deposit and move on. And in this market, it hasn't been such a big issue because there are always generally other people that are interested in the house. So they're like, okay, great. Like we'll just put it back up and sell it in a couple more days, or we're going to take the next offer. So you're usually okay. I just wouldn't bank on it. And then you give the second larger deposit after the inspection period is done. And in PA, we usually like to get an offer accepted with an inspection in this market. We've been shortening the inspection period to 7 days, which means like after you get your offer accepted, you have 7 days to get your inspectors out there to get the reports. And I always recommend going to the inspections, get the reports back and come up with a reply and send that to the seller.
Yeah. And then what I was asking is that you can ask the seller to fix the issues before you terminate, right? And if they say no, then you terminate.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Like if you can't come to an agreement, so the way it's structured in PA, you have 7 days to get the inspections done, come up with a reply. You have 2 days to negotiate back and forth between you and the seller. And then you have a 1-day decision-making period as the buyer to either move forward or terminate the contract based on the conclusion you've come to.
Got it. Okay, cool. And now we have the inspection. We're good. Everything's looking good. Or we fixed the issues or decreased the buying costs because...
Hey there, I just want to ask a quick favor before we continue. First, thanks for taking your time to watch this video. We hope you're enjoying it because it was a labor of love to make. You can help us continue to make more videos like this by simply liking the video below, subscribing to the channel, and commenting any thoughts you have. Even if you just want to say hi, it truly helps the channel grow and is important to the YouTube algorithm. So before we continue with the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying it. Thanks in advance, and let's get back to it.
They just couldn't fix it, so they said, oh, we'll knock off $10,000, whatever. So we're all happy. Now, what do we do after inspection and that step?
Definitely. After inspection, so throughout the inspection process, there are a couple of layers to it, but while you're going through the inspection period, it's really once you get under contract, the first couple of weeks are really busy for you as a buyer because you're also putting in the mortgage application and you're going through the initial mortgage phase, which they're going to require more documents as the mortgage company. And this is where, already having those pre-approvals from a couple of different lenders is important to have, because what happens is you need to do the mortgage application, at least in PA, within 5 to 7 days of getting the contract accepted. So what you want to do is once you have that accepted contract, those are the terms that the mortgage company is basing their rate on, their down payment, your monthly payment, the points that they may give you to get a lower rate. So that's the time where you need to shop around. So that first 7 days is going to be really busy for you because you're going through inspections and then you're going through shopping around rates with different mortgage companies. So again, I would say 3 local lenders or 2, talk to them, send over the contract. You may have one that you like, the most and you feel the best with. That's really, talk to you through the process the most. So what you want to do is you want to send the contract to the 3 different lenders. You want to talk to them, see what their best loan packages are. And then let's say you're really vibing with the one lender, but this other lender has a better rate. Take that loan package, bring it to the first lender and just say, hey, look, are you able to beat this? Generally, they are able to beat that. And then you move forward with that lender and go through the mortgage process. Nice. So that's the first kind of handful of days, what you're really focusing on.
Got it. And then what comes next after the mortgage is secured?
Yeah, definitely. So you have the mortgage secured, you have your application in, which triggers the appraisal. So that usually comes, I would say it depends how long your closing is. So typical closings in this market, it's really dependent on the seller and what they want for a closing right now. So it's anywhere from, let's say, 30 to 60 days between when the contract's signed to when you're getting the keys at the end of the day. So usually, the appraisal, when you get that back, if it's going to be rushed, if it's a quicker closing, you'll get that between 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 weeks when you get the appraisal back. So let's just talk about appraisals for a quick second, because if you are paying, let's say the house is $300,000, you put in an offer at $300,000, it's accepted, it was listed at $275,000, so you're $25,000 over asking price. And then the appraisal comes in at $290,000. So you have a $10,000 difference between $290,000 and the accepted contract at $300,000. So there's a $10,000 difference. That appraisal difference needs to be made up for dollar. So that means the mortgage company is not going to loan you that $10,000. So previous to the wild market that we've been in, maybe the seller would come down $5,000. Maybe the buyer would bring an additional $5,000 to the closing table. But in this market, that's why almost sellers have been leaning towards 1, cash offers, 2, offers that have more money down, because that means the buyer is in a better position to make up that $10,000 difference when it comes to the appraisal. And that's what the sellers are worried about. So a lot of the contracts that we've been writing in this market are to protect the seller. Of course, as a buyer's agent, you're looking out for the buyer and you're making sure that they understand how much money and that they're willing to spend that much money. But at the same time, in order to get an offer accepted, you have to have the seller in mind to know that, look, like they're going to be worried about the appraisal. They're going to be worried about the inspection. So like, what can we do to, help them understand that like we're in the position to cover that difference if that time does come. So that's like one of those hurdles that come throughout the transaction that you just want to keep in mind. And your agent will really talk to you about it. Usually like you have an idea if it will appraise or not in that range, and just kind of prepare you that like, okay, are you able to bring an extra 5,000 to the table? Because if you are, let's write that in the contract.
Yeah.
That's a big thing with the mortgage. So now you're through, the mortgage process. So you get through the appraisal, and then there's a final piece called the mortgage commitment. And usually in order to get the mortgage commitment, that's when the loan goes through the final stage of underwriting. I kind of see it in my head as like a bunch of people on their computers, like reading through all your bank statements, just making sure everything is lining up. And they're probably going to ask you for more stuff. So like, just be prepared. Like, it's kind of annoying, but like the mortgage company is going to ask you for stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah, everything you're speaking to happened with me. The appraisal came in at like 10,000 below. We covered 7,000 of it, and they brought it down 3,000. So it was a pretty good. In the end, it worked out pretty well for us because the appraisal came in lower than what they were asking. The price just dropped drastically, right? We were gonna pay like maybe 20,000 more, and then the appraisal came in like 20,000 below that, and so automatically we're paying less. But of course, we're paying the 7,000 just to split the difference. But yeah, it helped us in negotiations. But even more because the appraisal came under, and we paid less. Now, when we improve the house, we get all that equity back for free.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Not everyone's that lucky, but like it definitely worked out for you. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, great. That's your response to me, Cass?
No, it's awesome. And so stressful.
Yeah, and then of course with the mortgage commitment and all of that whole process, that was hell. It can go very poorly, especially if you don't have all your papers lined up, or you have a complicated situation. If you like own lots of businesses and you have your money moving around here and there through brokerage accounts, they're going to ask for every single piece of paper, make sure they know exactly where the money's coming from, where it's going, when it left and when it came. Yeah, they're looking through everything. So, what was that?
Yeah, I'm like, who it came from, why?
Exactly. Yeah, they asked me like, "Oh, you got $4,000. That who gave you that?" And oh, my girlfriend gave that to me. Do you want to go through all my Venmos, right?
Right. I know.
It's like, come on. So I get it. They're trying to prevent Anna Delvey from happening, right?
My gosh, seriously.
Man,
That's that far is so impressive.
Yeah, that's where she got blocked. I was rooting for her the whole time, and then when it came to like the last minute when she got the call, we're at the last step. All we gotta do now is confirm diligence, all of that. It's like, yeah, good luck getting through that.
Right? You're like, there's no way. Oh my god, that was so stressful. I know.
Yeah.
Is she gonna do it? Nope.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's like these people in a room, and they're really making sure that everything lines up how it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to give it to them. Like, it is important. It is important.
Yeah.
It's a pain, though. I will say it's such a pain, especially as you start, adding more properties to your portfolio, adding more investments. It gets complicated.
Yeah, and it slows down the whole process. That took us. It felt like a month, but maybe it wasn't. But yeah, it was a long time. And the sellers, they're like, when are you going to finish this? Everyone's waiting, like, let's get this done. And then if you are in a situation with your job, which I was, where I just got a new job, I couldn't start the job when I was supposed to. So I had to keep pushing back that start date, because if I leave, then they're going to ask, oh, why'd you leave your job? Did you lose it? Can you afford this house anymore? It's like.
Definitely. Yeah. So usually you're okay if you stay within the same field, but at the same time, it's never advisable. I mean, I had a client, And I told them, I mean, I love them. They are so awesome. But yeah, they just kind of did whatever they wanted throughout the process. And I'm like, guys, like, what do you mean you can't? He quit his job right before, it was a week before closing. And I was like, oh my God, they had a baby and he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm like, I get it. But like, we already had this conversation. Like, and then the wife thankfully got approved on her own at the last minute. So they switched it and they pulled him off the loan. But I was like, dude, come on.
Yeah, that's rough. That could have gone sideways very easily.
Yeah, so easily. So yeah, don't finance anything. Don't buy new cars. Don't buy any furniture.
Yeah.
Just stay the course. Buy the house. Figure out everything afterwards. And then look, if you want to buy a new couch or if you want to start paying the contractor to like do whatever, talk to the lender. Like before you spend any money, talk to your lender and be like, hey, is this okay? And that's why it makes sense to work with someone that you know and trust, because one, if they're good, they're going to get most of this paperwork up front. So it's just going to be like these little things afterward. But a lot of the you see commercials, I see them all the time. Even like when I was watching the Super Bowl, I was seeing of these commercials for Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage and things like that. They're not asking you for the paperwork up front. So that's when you get into a situation where you can't afford this size house, or you buy the car because you don't know that you can't do that, or the mortgage rate switches because they didn't have you sign one paper, you know, at the end of the day. I had this listing a couple of months ago, and the guy worked for Loans, and his closing still had to get pushed off a couple of days because they had him sign the wrong document. And I'm like, what? Like, you work for them. You're a loan officer. Like, I'm not sure what the issue is, like how this happened. And it had to get pushed off a couple of days. So like, stay clear. Stay clear if you can. Yeah,
and just to know this point home is like, don't move anything, right? Like the money, even if you want to sell stock and move it to your account, don't do that. They're gonna ask for everything. I'm making all this money. Why are you asking? I'm making money. I'm not losing money. It's like they want to know, because they also want to make sure you're not a fraud. They want to make sure you're not getting that money from someone you shouldn't be getting it, like a second mortgage.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, like they need to cover themselves, which makes a lot of sense, and you need to cover yourself by like making sure that you're not like messing around with anything. If you want to do something, ask the lender. Like even I had to pay the contractor to do like a couple of things to get started, and I was like, am I okay? Like, can I spend this money? He's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, because I had enough money to like cover that and still have enough for my down payment and all of that stuff. So just ask. Always ask.
Yeah. And just one more thing for me, I had my money in my brokerage account to the very last minute. So, which was fine because I had to sell some stocks and move my money in to make the closing and down payment. So that was fine because I could show that I had enough with my brokerage statements. So that was the only thing I had to move at the last minute. But otherwise, there was nothing else moving. Like I had to make sure I was in place. They really drag it out. If they want to, they can drag as long as they want. They'll ask all the questions, and they'll drag their feet. They will take all the time that they need, and they won't even let you know what the progress is. Like you usually sitting there for a week, like I gave you the paper last week. What's the progress? Like, oh, we're still in underwriting. I'm like, come on. So yeah. It's very stressful.
It's the big banks because like when you have a local lender, they rely on their relationships to get business in and their past experiences and all of that and their reviews. When you have a big bank, people are like, oh, I bank with this company. They said they're going to give me a good rate. Like, I'm going to go with them. So you have leads coming into them left and right, and they're busy and they're closing deals. They don't care because they're in another state. So sometimes when they're in another state, they're a newer lender. They don't even know what the local regulations are for the loans, what the local fees are. So then they get to like towards the end of closing and they're like, oh, we have to add this fee and this fee. And you're like, okay, like I know you don't care, but like it's like $3,000. What do you mean? Like you have to add these fees now, or like this and that, or the rate's changed and we didn't lock you in. And like you're not gonna see them at the coffee shop. Like you're not gonna see them at, I don't know, wherever you would go, a restaurant.
Yep.
Yeah, like they just don't care. They're closing so many deals that like if it gets pushed, it gets pushed. It's like a normal practice for them where, you know, these local lenders, like that's their lifeblood. Like they're not missing those deadlines and they'll close you sooner even.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, it makes sense now why you push them, why you are so much of an advocate for them. Yeah, it seems faster to go with the online banks because you just click a button and you have your pre-approval, but and you don't have to call anyone. But yeah, definitely when you get to the closing table, you definitely experience the differences between the local versus the national banks.
And just on that note, a lot of local lenders, if you don't want to talk on the phone or do any of that, they do have an application process online. Like a lot of the local lenders have, updated, and they're like not antiquated or anything like that. Like they have those online applications that you can fill out and like, yeah, all the way do it 100%. I don't make any money by like referring people to them. I know that you're going to have a better experience, and like that's what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. So I clearly am not experienced with local lenders, making them seem like they're in the Stone Ages.
I know.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say they're not, but like some realtors are, some lenders are. So I'm not saying they're not. It just you gotta know the right ones. And
Yeah.
you can help anyone get connected with anything as well. So you're not stuck.
Yeah. So we went through all of this, right? We went through the pre-approval. We found the house that we want to look at. We found multiple houses that we thought we could afford, but we couldn't. And then we found one that isn't great. It might have some work to be done. We still love it, and we decided to put in an offer. Got accepted after some hurdles, and we got the mortgage, FHA, 3.5% down, conventional 10%, 5%, 20% maybe, and we put in our earnest money. We got our appraisal, and the mortgage due diligence is over. So what's next? Is it closing time?
Yeah, it's about closing time.
Tell me about that. What happens now?
Closing day, like what to expect. Really, it's about 30 minutes to an hour. You go sit in an office somewhere, and sometimes the sellers are there, sometimes they're not. You're gonna have the title company there, which we didn't really touch on title. There's not much the buyer has to do as far as title goes, but I can explain that afterwards if you want. So you're going to go and you're going to sign all of the mortgage documents and then a couple title documents, and then you get the keys. Oh, usually you give a check or you wire funds as well, and then you get the keys and the house is yours. So that's what closing is. And then right before that, either the night before or the morning of closing, you want to do a final walkthrough in the house. And when you do a final walkthrough, you do want to make sure that you and your realtor check everything. Flush the toilets, run the hot and cold water, let the water run for a while, check under the sinks, like make sure no water is leaking from the tub, like make sure everything's out of the house. Just make sure everything's running, like turn the oven on and the stove and the dishwasher. Just check everything, like spend a little time. I know it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, where's my couch gonna go and this and that, but like just wait a second, like make sure that everything is working for you before you get to closing, and then buy that house, get the keys.
Yeah, awesome. So we made it to signing day. We signed, we got the house. I do agree you should take the time to make sure the house is in the state that you expected, but I just went through this whole process and I'm ready to just move in, and I don't want to delay the process any longer. What happens if I say, oh, the toilet's not working? What's the recourse?
Yeah, so what you can do is you kind of have to just decide for yourself, like what's that important. Like if the toilet's not working, what you can't do is have anything change on the final documents, because then it has to get back to the mortgage company and there's everything's delayed. I mean, if it's a big thing, then sure, that makes sense. But a lot of times it can, you talk to your realtor, you and your realtor come up with a plan, toilet's not working. I'm going to call the other realtor and say, look, the toilet's not working. Like, we're not sure what's up with it. Do you guys have any idea? If they know what it is, maybe then, the realtor is going to call their local plumber and just say, hey, like, how much would this cost you to fix it? And can you get out here after closing? They're like, yeah, we can do that. It's probably going to be $300. You call the other agent back and be like, look, like, they're not going to sign the paperwork unless like we get, a Venmo, let's say for $300. And then you get a Venmo for $300, you get the plumber out there, you fix the toilet. So really like everything is fixable.
Got it.
You figure it out. And yep, I would just say get it before closing ends. Get it before closing ends and before you finish signing the paperwork. Because like once the seller gets their money,
it's over.
it's over. Game over. I mean, my clients unfortunately didn't have a mailbox key, and it was like a little thing. And they asked me after closing, they're just like, hey, look, like, I think the seller should pay for this. Like, it's $60 to $100. I was like, you're not getting the $60 to $100. Like, that, yeah, you just got to get a locksmith out and, you know, get a key. Like, and you as a buyer, like, okay, little things happen. And like, I do this every day. And like, little things happen when I got here into my house. And it's just like, yeah, it's a little annoying. At the end of the day, you bought a house. You bought a house. Like, you're growing up, like you're putting on, like, I don't know, you're taking on a responsibility, and nothing's perfect and no house is perfect. Even a new construction house isn't going to be perfect. And you just have to go into it knowing that. When you go into the inspections, you know that there's going to be a ton of little things, and it's the realtor's goal to help you. And it's your goal to just, you know, put away a lot of the stuff that is little, focus on the big things, get those fixed, and then everything else you do over time, you figure it out. And you don't worry about them. You don't sweat the small stuff. And like with buying a house, it's that, you know, all the time. And you're going to run into stuff all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't sweat the small things. Right. I like that whole demeanor. It's just, it'll be all right. Just do what you gotta do now and you'll get there. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Have you ever had a situation where someone blew up the deal on something small or even big?
I mean, totally. And, you know, people think, and I've heard you talk about it before too, and it's just like realtors, like I don't want to say what's their value or this and that, but it's like a lot of times, and like I have this really, you know, calm demeanor, but I want to make sure the house is really good for you. And it's so important in this business because you're dealing with, you know, people that are going through either like the seller is going through this huge emotional process of like letting go of this house that they've had for so long. And, you know, the buyer is buying their first house. So they don't care, you know, that the seller has this huge emotional attachment. Like, you know, they want everything done and perfect. And like the seller, and it's a natural feeling for you as a buyer to like not want anything to be wrong with the house. Like, and then for the seller, you know, they probably don't want to fix anything. So people want to blow it up over the smallest things a lot of the time. And that's why our rules, like for many reasons, but like for this reason too, are so important as being like that middle person, because it's just like taking that information from your client who wants to blow it up over this and like being able to like talk them through it and like coach them through the process. And kind of keeping that from the seller, because if you just had a buyer and seller working together all the time, it'd be like, well, we want 100 things fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And the seller is going to be like, see ya. Like, I don't care that you want 100 things fixed. Like, I'm not doing it. And then like the deal's done. And like, yeah, it was unbelievable in this market. I got a buyer's reply to inspection on this house that my seller, you know, flipped. And I mean, that reply to inspection was the longest I've ever seen. I was like, this is unbelievable. And like, I took it back to my seller. And I mean, he definitely was like, I won't curse, but he was like, are you kidding me? Like, and like, we had that conversation and then like, we worked through it. And yeah, it's just about like having the right team to like work through it. But yeah, buyers want to blow things up, sellers want to blow things up. People are difficult. Sometimes the realtor on the other side is like a huge jackass, and you're just like, come on, like, why are you like that? Like, we're both on the same team. And then you meet the seller at closing, and the seller is like the nicest person ever, and you're like, how did you? So yeah, it's a constant.
Yeah, we had many things in our inspection, but we were wise enough to realize that we weren't going to get most of them fixed. So we just focused on the biggest ones and had them handle that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, the middle ones, because the biggest ones would cost too much and they would have definitely not paid for it. So we figured we'll just buy and fix it up ourselves and fix it up and got some good value back.
Right? Seriously. And like, you bought a little while ago, so I'm sure it's already appreciated, which is great for you.
Yeah, it's definitely appreciated very well. Can't take any money out right now, but we can, but it wouldn't be smart because we still have a lot more work to do, and hopefully next year or the year after we will have quite a bit of equity to refinance, cash out.
Nice. That's awesome. Right?
Yep.
Put it to something else.
Yep, exactly. Thanks for walking us through all of that. That was a long one, and I appreciate all of those insights into the home buying process. Of course, we'll have to do the selling process at some point, and there's a lot more to talk about. There's lots of details in each of those steps. What I am curious about is just your thoughts on real estate agents versus, the iBuyers who will sell you a home over the internet or buy your home from you, right? So we can talk about all of that in the future, but we are definitely over our time and we don't want to keep this video too long. So I appreciate it again, Cass, and I hope that we'll have you on again for another talk.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. And thank you, Lincoln.
Of course. Do you have any last words?
Just use the right people. And if you don't know who the right people are,
let's end there. What's the key people I need?
Key people you need a great lender. You need a great realtor. I would start with those two, and they're going to point you in the right direction. You need a great title person and PA and a great inspector. It's just different in every area. So I'd start with a great realtor. Or if you know a personal, like if you don't know a realtor and you know a lender, like start with them and then have them connect you with a great realtor because it's just so important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know a lender or a realtor, reach out to Lincoln or reach out to myself and I'll get you connected with someone in your local area. Because that's going to be the most important part to you getting into a house, feeling confident in that house, feeling confident throughout the process. And that makes the difference in everything. It makes the difference between like you feeling confident to buy this house and then buy another in the future, like be able to move or sell or do this or that. And like that relationship is so invaluable and will make you so much money in the future. So yeah, get the right team and reach out to us. We'll get you connected.
And on that note, just back to the FORRE Group, what sets you guys apart? What's your mission? What do you do that really helps the buyer and the seller?
Yeah, so our goal with the FORRE Group is to be there for all of your real estate needs. And I know that sounds corny, but really just be there for you as a resource every step of the way. So that's where we're building up our Instagram and we're constantly trying to kind of put out value to people and help educate you throughout the process so that you know that we're here for you and like we're accessible for you with any questions, even if it means you're not buying a house right now or selling a house right now, helping you prepare and be ready and understand. And if you need a plumber, if you need a roofer or anything that you do need, like just know we're here for you. We're here for our community. Like we're here for our friends, for our family, just like whatever people need, like we're here for you. So that's really our mission and our goal. And yeah, it's what we try and do every day.
Yeah. And you operate in the greater Philly area, right?
For sure. Yep. Greater Philly area.
Nice. Well, thanks again, Cassidee. And it's been a pleasure and we'll definitely do it again. So I hope the audience enjoys this. I'm sure they will. We cover mostly stocks on this channel, but there's definitely room for real estate and something I want to get into. So glad to have you here to give us this hour and a half walkthrough on the buying process. We just could go much longer, go 3 hours, right? It's a complicated process. So thank you again for taking all your time to walk us through that.
For sure. Anytime. Happy to.
You have been watching BRRRRacademy.org on YouTube, where we teach long-term investing by breaking down concepts and sharing the stories of companies to help you build long-lasting, sustainable wealth that will help you retire on your terms. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and want to see more like it, please remember to like the video below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this topic. I would love to hear from you, and I always do my best to respond to every comment. And if you would like to engage with me outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me over on Instagram at Lincoln W. Daniel, where I share random thoughts on life and wealth building that I believe would help others. Finally, as always, this video has been brought to you by our patrons at patreon.BRRRRacademy.org who support this channel financially to help us keep going and help me brainstorm new video ideas to share with all of you. We do all of this in our private Discord channel where we share knowledge and discuss the stock market in real time every day by sharing news, rumors, and new investment ideas so we can all do our own research and then come back together and collaborate. So if you're interested in all of that, I hope you'll join us over at patreon.BRRRRacademy.org. I'm Lincoln with BRRRRacademy.org. Thank you again and have a great day.